Welcome to Veterans of the North, a DAV of Minnesota podcast where we honor and serve disabled veterans and their families. Together, we'll explore the stories, programs, and initiatives that make a difference for our veterans. Joining us today is our very own Mike McElhiney and retired U.S. Army Major Mark Nutsch, Special Forces veteran, combat leader, and real-life inspiration behind the film 12 Strong. We are honored to have him with us. Mark, you're here in Minnesota. You just flew in, is it yesterday?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Minnesota. This is a particularly nice part of it. I don't know if you've been around Minnesota very much. Or...
This is only my second time.
Okay.
To Minnesota.
Right. Where are you coming from?
Kansas City.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome to
Is
Minnesota.
Is that an insult? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. I've been to Kansas City several times and
It's changing, yeah.
regretted it every time. But, that's all right. That's okay. Well, I think it's great to have you here, both of you here, and I'm looking forward to just getting into it. Both Special Forces soldiers, both right around that timeline, 9/11, 2001. So I think to get started, if you'd both share where you're at, September 10th, 2001, what life is like in the Special Forces and what you're doing at that point in time. Mark, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, sure. I was assigned to the 5th Special Forces Group. On September 10th, I had just completed 2 years as a Special Forces Detachment Commander of a team known as Operational Detachment Alpha 595. And in that 2 years, we had deployed half a dozen times into the Middle East to Kuwait, Jordan, and most significantly, the country of Uzbekistan. We had gone multiple times. We were among some of the first Special Forces teams to go there, to that former Soviet republic. We had other teams in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and places. But that experience is what set us up for the post 9/11 mission. September 10th for me, an emotional day. My time's up as a detachment commander, as a captain, and you clean out your wall locker and drag your gear across the street to the battalion headquarters to start a operations job. And I watched 9/11 from home.
Okay, all right.
I've had a 2 young stepsons, 4 and 3 years old, and my wife was a high-risk pregnancy with our first daughter.
Okay. All right, so yeah, you definitely stands out. You're moving over to the ops side, and a lot of change going on. Mike, where are you at?
Yeah, we were actually over in Uzbekistan. Was it not Uzbekistan? Where were we? Where the heck were we? Kazakhstan?
The stands.
The stands. Where the heck were we? I know I've mentioned this story like 80 times.
Well, you referenced Uzbekistan in our earlier conversation.
Were we in Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan?
You were in one of the former Soviet.
I don't know. I've been to both.
Starting to kick in. Both. We were in the stands training, some units, and we'd been there for a while. 30 days or something like that, typical time frame. But we were actually eating when we saw the news of the Twin Towers getting hit. So we were in our pizza place eating egg pizza. It's some kind of, Soviet delicacy or something. But we sure had a lot of it. And we watched the towers get hit. And what's interesting, leading up to this, and I've said it before because, I'm sure you'll talk about Al-Qaeda and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know that term. We're nugs and carry heavy weight, but I hadn't heard of Al-Qaeda till about 3 days prior to 9/11, because the units we were with, I guess their local S2 intel folks said, hey, they're getting ready to make some big move. And Jason Amory, he'd mentioned that, and we're like, okay, whatever, let's go eat pizza. And then boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go forward a little bit, what's bringing us to the Special Forces? What's bringing them to the former Soviet stands? What is that? Building partnerships, opening new doors? Why already kind of in that region?
Yeah, is that is just part of that American foreign policy and military engagement with various countries where the former Soviet Union had kind of broken up, and those countries in that Central Asian region were looking for partnerships, and America stepped in there and started to send Special Forces teams in to work with their military. When we were in there in 2000, we spent nearly 6 months on our mission there in 2-month blocks. But America had just sold them Humvees.
Okay.
So that was pretty crazy to see one of the American military trucks on a back rural road. It's like, how did that get here? But yeah, we were in there working with one of their Spetsnaz, one of their special forces units in 2000, and they were already. That's where we learned about Al Qaeda. Already was literally more than a year before the attacks. In prep for that, because the unit we were fighting, the unit we were training there, in the middle of that deployment, they ended up stopping training and went off to fight is Al Qaeda affiliates, a terror group called the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan.
Okay.
And so then our training mission changed and stopped, and they held us in country as we watched that country deal with multiple coordinated attacks of these terror groups, heavily armed and equipped, attacking their police and government forces.
What, was yours a limited role, or was there any sort of advisory capacity, or did you just have to kind of step back and watch?
I don't want to take it too deep down that, but initially we were there in a training role, an advisory role with them, and that was fine. We had a great relationship. We had briefed and met their general officer leadership all the way down to the unit we were working with. And when you do those types of missions, you meet with folks in the embassy, the American embassy as well. And but soon as these attacks happened in the country, the mission changed immediately. Our partner, our Uzbek Special Forces partner, they asked us to accompany them into the field. And I was like, well, okay, hang on. The guys will be here to help you prep. I got to get off to the embassy with our chief and team sergeant to go inform the American embassy of what's happening in the country. And, you think you have great rapport with the defense attaché officer and all this stuff. He's shooting with you. They're parachuting with you, jumping, coming to train. And he was like, oh, stop. You're done. Pull the team back in.
Okay.
We had another change of mission. Then now you become part of a contingency force to safeguard the ambassador and the embassy staff.
Okay.
In my opinion, that was
like that.
Yeah. It was a huge opportunity missed because we had approval. I mean, I call our chain of command back at Fort Campbell up through Fort Bragg, our headquarters, and to Central Command, and everybody says, yes, you can accompany the partner force as long as the ambassador says it's okay.
Oh.
And they were like, no, you're not on my watch, not on my time as a State Department.
Boy.
So then you got the State Department and Defense Department friction that happened there briefly.
Okay.
So...
yeah, that does. It sounds like a missed opportunity.
But you're just watching the news. It was total news blackout.
Yeah.
It wasn't. They didn't show these attacks that were happening, and then you started to see the attacks happen around the city, and the security posture change quickly during that. But that was our introduction to Al Qaeda.
Yeah, I remember about a year prior to that, because there were a lot of teams going over there, and there's some Tajikistan incidents and Uzbek. Yeah, I remember that. But he's right. Yeah, you get swapped over and retasked, but the relationship is, no international incidents will be started by you folks.
Yeah. And I mean, we were like, hey, let's follow them, let's advise them, let's go with them, and be defensive in nature with the ROE. I mean, we preempted this, but they were like, absolutely not. You're not going. But back to your question, that's what Special Forces does is we're sent in small teams, typically of 12, maybe some other attachments or enablers, we call them, the technical intelligence, other human intelligence or logistical support folks, things like that, or civil affairs or our PSYOPs. But you go to work with an allied nation and help advise them and help build their capability and capacity within their special forces or their military.
Yeah.
We do that. Small teams go so that large Army or Marine Corps units don't typically have to deploy over there.
In
some ways, you're trying to mitigate a crisis before it occurs.
And so
I like to call it making it safe for the conventional units to come in.
There's set the we call it set the conditions.
There you go.
Set the conditions.
Set the conditions. Well, we'll jump back forward here. September 11th does happen. Mike, you're over in the region. Mark, you are at home, thinking you're going to transition into the ops side. What's the immediate impact? What does that look like for Special Forces? Those who are kind of anticipating being there, as early as can possibly be.
I think you quickly, the commonality was you quickly realized, okay, one aircraft striking the building, okay, accident, did the pilot have a medical issue? What happened? And then when that second one, and then the word of, the third going to the Pentagon, you realize this is a coordinated terror attack. Our unit will probably somehow be involved. That is our regional focus, was the Middle East. And then as over the next few days, as word come out, our team was informed on September 14th that we would be among the first of the teams at the unit at that time. His was already forward, and other teams were forward on other missions, and there were teams getting prepared to deploy forward on a rotational basis that we had there. But our team got notified on September 14th that we'd be among the first teams to deploy out.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing too with us we were just like, we were bummed, like, man, I hope I can go home and repack. We didn't have all our equipment. And I think it took us like at least a week to get back in, because the aircraft were shut down coming into the U.S. for like 4 days or something. So it was like 7 days before we got back.
Okay.
And then, a week later we were, called into isolation. Teams are already isolated.
Yeah.
Teams are already,
Yeah, they spun us up pretty quick, and then we didn't do a formal isolation and at Fort Campbell, and then we had 3 false starts. If you've been in the military, as a veteran, any service, you've said your goodbyes to the family, and hugs to the kids and everything, and then you leave, and then a few hours later or half a day later, that aircraft didn't come, something happened, something wasn't coordinated properly with a country clearance or something, and then you're going home again. So we had 3 of those false starts. So it became an emotional roller coaster for the family. By that last time, they were like, hey, y'all just need to go.
So now you're back out of ops? Is that?
Yeah, yes. On September 14th, I got put right back on my team.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is that, you were looking for that transition? That's where you wanted to be?
Well, yeah. With, knowing that the unit's going to war.
Yeah.
And then our team was picked because of our experience and qualifications from being in the region. And there was only a handful of teams like Mike's that had that regional experience there, whereas others of them, most of their experience was in Jordan or Kuwait or other Middle Eastern countries. But it was an honor to be on that team at that time and to be put back on the team. Yeah. And we had a couple guys trapped in schools at Fort Bragg, so they wouldn't pull them back out of school. So we got 2 other new senior NCOs come to the team.
Okay.
I'd say one of the things they did, though, which is smart, bringing you back, they tried to get the cohesive team back together. So Ronnie Rakes on our team, he had just moved up to company. You just moved off team. You're still there, and Alpha Company, you guys are upstairs. But they brought the teams back together as close as they could. If they had been, a team for 18 months or whatever, and dudes just moved within the last couple of weeks, they tried to pack them back together.
It almost makes too much sense for the military to have come up with it.
Well, it happens. You're trying to balance the career progression of these guys, and most of the teams are together probably, it's like any sports team, where you go through a rebuilding cycle. When I got to that team in fall of 1999, I made the 7th guy on the team. They were in a rebuilding, and they only had 7, and the team sergeant had led the team for over a year because we don't have enough captains or warrant officers that make it through the Special Forces assessment selection in the pipeline at that time. And so we were in a rebuilding phase. We still deployed as a team, just 7 of us.
Yeah.
And we went just a few weeks after I got on the team. But so we were fortunate where we were in that peak rebuilding period, and we were just starting to send some guys off to some of their other professional development schools, which always happens. You're always down 1 or 2 guys somewhere else. But just I can't say enough about the team. Average age was 32. Average 8 years time in service. 5 of them were already Special Forces combat veterans from the first Gulf War, or Desert Shield, Desert Storm, or Bosnia, Panama, things like that. Some of them had been in Somalia. On the Special Forces mission during what everybody knows is the Black Hawk Down period, right, in 1993. Special Forces was running amok in Somalia already doing incredible missions, and I had some of those guys on my team.
So a lot of good experience.
So just
there.
incredible experience.
Yeah. Sounds like the people you'd want to be going with is
definitely
we're already there. So it takes a few days to ramp it up, a week to get back, and then ramp it up. I'm sure just setting up where your planes can go and can't go, and who's going to allow for operations to come through must have been a headache for somebody.
Yeah, somebody had to figure that out. That's part of that reason of our teams being in these other countries. When we flew over there, we were the 7th aircraft to land
Okay.
at the new secret base called Karshiganabad in southern Uzbekistan. And when that ramp dropped in the middle of the night, we walked off the plane. It was Uzbek Special Forces officers that I had worked with the year before and an interpreter. So they were known entities as we came off the ramp, and they're like, hey, we got this.
Oh,
They got security around. But that relationship, that we were all working to do, that helped ease, I'm told, that government accepting of American military to come back in there. I'm sure that and a couple pallets of cash.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Works
to rent the airfield or whatever. But
and so that movement, and I think you both end up in different regions in Afghanistan. Is that right?
Yes.
That movement into Afghanistan. Everything's going so quick, right? They're still determining targets, things like that, strategy. You must not have a well-developed plan going in, right? Is it you have an objective and then you figure out how to get there, or how does that look when you're the very first teams going in like that?
So Mike mentioned earlier, when a team goes into isolation, it's typically by our doctrine. It's supposed to be 96 hours, and you go into an intense planning process. And our team didn't formally isolate at Fort Campbell, but the time we had, we still were asking questions. We did it internally within our team working space, and you're sending up questions. We call them requests for information, and there was really nothing coming back. America was not ready to fight there. We had to wait like 3 or 4 days to even get the right maps.
Oh, yeah. There's a jog map.
And we literally, I tell the story, we literally were using National Geographic magazines.
Wow.
And looking at the terrain, the geology, the people. The intel section is trying to gather information and scrape it and put it together for us and all that. It just hadn't really been released, or it was very, very surface level.
Yeah.
And
so Russian grid maps and the jogs.
Yeah.
Which are joint operational graphic aircraft maps and Russian maps.
Yeah. So we didn't have the tactical maps. We had, here's the big country map. All right, what does that really look like? They're trying to get us imagery and understand the people, the terrain, the geology, the geography, the history.
Yeah.
Who would our possible partners be? Who was the resistance that was already fighting Taliban and Al-Qaeda? Because we knew whatever mission came, we would probably be working with a partner force.
Because is it the 80s that the United States is there supporting the fight against the Soviet Union, right? And then just kind of close the door on it as far as keeping track of the players and the intelligence, or?
Yeah, there was some of that happened. They brought out some of those archives.
Yeah.
They brought out some of the SF soldiers that had actually participated in that.
Okay. All right.
That were retired in the area, and they brought them in to brief our team up and some of the others.
Okay.
But there was not a lot known.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure it out. What I loved about being in special operations is people just driven, determined, smart, a lot of academic types, but then really practical theory, not just theory, but practice.
Yeah.
Of unconventional warfare. So there was a lot of that coming together, reading, but then you're reading a piece, we're all reading a piece, but then we'd come together and you would share that with the group, because you're just trying to soak up as much knowledge as you can, and there's more textbooks and more information than you have time to absorb. But to include a language refresher.
Yeah.
You're trying to utilize that time on some basic languages and things like that. But
and I think that was the difference too. Is we had more time in the Fort Campbell isolation facility when they brought down, when the agency started piling stuff in. I mean, we just had stacks of stuff we were going through for days. And the big thing that struck us was just that tactic where the Taliban would do a light hit. Russians would bring in a medevac, and then they'd hit the medevac. And we were reading all this kind of stuff, just going, oh man, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
And then you did the formal, we had a pretty good formal planning, I guess, on our side when we got to Uzbekistan. But same thing. It's like today you're going in with this guy. 3 hours later, he's killed, stand down. And, because we thought we were going up north, or there was leadership from up north that we were supposed to go in with. And I think we got stood down 3 times because people were getting killed.
Yeah.
And then, Karzai stood up, and then they even said he got killed. And then came back, a couple hours later. Oh, nope, he's still alive.
Okay.
Yeah, as I think the Taliban became aware that the American military was coming over, then they went after any possible opposition
Yeah.
and leaders before they were even linked up with American Special Forces teams.
Okay.
And so I know that's what Mike's referring to there of those false starts, and
So
because your partner
Yeah.
is maybe not even viable enough. Or you're trying to figure it out. How do you communicate with them, right? How do you get in touch with them? Where are they at in the world? And how do you even logistically fly someone there to meet with them? So all these things were happening. We were fortunate. We started to identify different leaders in the North from different ethnic factions that we thought we could work with. But then our team got informed. That mission didn't fully develop for us as we were forward, and we learned that teams like Mike and others, 8 of them, were being isolated at Fort Campbell and going through. And then we were briefed that our team would not be part of those initial teams going in.
Okay.
And so you want to talk about morale and
Yeah.
emotional roller coaster again, because we're like, hey, we're here. We were picked to come here for a reason, and we're confident. And we've been feeding the machine,
Yeah.
But just the American way of war is very different now than it was in 2001. We did not have topographical or digital maps at the time. That was really just starting to come into its thing. So, we were issued Garmin GPS devices that we bought through Bass Pro and Cabela's.
Yeah.
Love those things.
Literally
Yeah.
reading the directions all night. Like, I hope this works when I need
You
it.
literally were reading the directions on the plane over.
Yeah.
Because they had just given them to you brand new. And but they didn't have, where I'm going with that is they didn't have the topographical data layer to give us to load into the device.
Okay.
So it's like Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
But that device was invaluable because you could make up your own map and then share out the coordinates and the points. But,
So you're still in Uzbekistan at this point, waiting for kind of a clear mission to go over for.
Other teams show up and they go into their final planning phase and brief back, and then one of the teams didn't fare so well because there was so little known, and then our team was said, hey, do you want the mission? And we were put in, and we would be what was second in the first 8 teams to be inserted. But when I say so little's known, that when they gave us the formal information that was gathered,
Yep.
it was 4 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And that was double-sided printed.
That's everything you've got.
That was it. And
officially
most
to
of
go
it
on.
was what we had fed ourselves, and they had regurgitated.
Yeah, with all of this, NSA, CIA,
They-
CENTCOM.
They get you
We were
4
well
front and
prepared.
back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does
But that's normal. See, that's
But we're comfortable with
Well,
that.
and
That,
you don't-
that ambiguity
you-
of we know somebody's got to be sent in there to figure out the answers.
Yeah, you don't want too many limits. You don't want too much direction because you got to be able to adjust on the fly and make decisions. What does that? I mean, as you're going, is that your goal? You're going to make relationships. You have a set target you're trying to build a relationship with to eventually progress to the point of being able to challenge the Taliban in a force kind of way, or
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head right there. Our mission was we identified different leaders. I had different leaders in the north than what Mike and his team had in the south initially, but your job is to fly in there or however you get there, get in there.
Yeah.
Number one, that's a challenge. How are you getting there? Are you jumping in? Are you driving in? Are they flying you in by helicopter?
How'd you end up
They
getting
flew
in?
us by helicopter.
Okay.
We had a special operations helicopter, MH-47 it's called, flew us in there, and they had challenges. They had to take that helicopter higher than it's supposed to go and aerial refuel that helicopter, an incredible risk.
yeah,
But they got our team in on the ground with our CIA partners that we were introduced to and would work with. And but that mission really is we've identified these leaders. Can we work with them, assess their agenda, their thoughts, seek their input? What are their capabilities? Do what we call an area assessment.
yeah,
And then as you see their troops and forces, well, what do they need? What do they need? Lethal aid. They need rifles. They need ammunition. They need mortars, machine guns, all that. They need medical supplies. It's winter's coming on. They need cold weather gear. They need food. They need everything. So there was this incredible logistical effort as well of our supply folks working, emptying out warehouses in Europe, in Germany there to fly in cold weather gear.
Yeah, you got to get it all there. Yeah.
That's home.
Russian equipment was pretty interesting. And
Now, Mike, you're south.
Yeah.
But does it look similar? That's the same thing you're doing?
It sounds like, because I remember, every night you'd hear the helicopters spin up, and sometimes they made it in because of the high altitude and the environmental issues. Sometimes they didn't. But, you'd see the guys kind of heading off in the dark, and you're like, well, I hope I see those guys again, because everybody was kind of in the same boat. But, we had a little bit more time, I think, to plan. With us, it was going to be, I think, a 2-team mission, and then it was going to be a split team mission, so 6 guys, and then it came down to our just ODA. And half of our ODA had flown down to southern, where did we go? Pakistan, northern Pakistan, I think. We split somewhere. I think it was northern Pakistan. Is that where? No, because we ended up going to the team split. And then we did some further planning, and then the rest of the team came down, and then we infilled that night, kind of briefed the rest of the guys up when they got there, and we got some new equipment. But we went in, this southern Afghanistan, so that northern tip of Pakistan, and popped in that way. But we had, I think, as far as planning goes, like he was talking about, all the typical stuff is second nature. So, like, what we were really doing, we went through the drill with, because we'd done a big area study, known their tactics. We thought we knew them anyway. And then the typical planning, to kind of A through Z stuff. But it was really contingency heavy. I mean, like, every phase, it's like, here's the pace cold going through every phase and what's going to trigger that. And it was kind of like where I was focused anyway. And
Okay. You're making these contacts. I guess, can you just talk a little bit about that, the logistics of moving around the country, of making the different contacts? Like, what is that experience like?
So my team, the 595 team, we were flown in by Special Operations helicopter, and drops off in north central Afghan mountains. They put us in around 8,000 feet elevation, and then that helicopter flew off at 2 a.m. And
so there you are.
Here you are with our CIA teammates, and
no topographical maps.
Well, by then we had some maps.
Good. That's good.
Then we had some maps, but they were the Joint Air Graphic 1 to 250,000 scale, because we had incredible, being among those first teams, we could go anywhere in the country that we deemed we needed to go.
Okay.
With that partner. So how are you carrying tactical maps like that? So we had one large kind of country map to use, and but we met with our partners and started to understand what they had, and that was about 300 fighters on horseback.
Okay.
So it was like you'd step back in time when you got off this helicopter, and we went into battle with them on the second day.
Wow.
The first day we called in, we had to ride. 6 of us would split. Mike's referenced a split team. The 12 of you split into 2 6-man sections, and my section mounted horseback and rode for about 4 hours, something that the U.S. Army had not done since World War II.
Wow.
Was ride horses in combat.
Yeah.
So we're figuring things out, and Chief and his half of the team started meeting with the locals and started doing that area assessment. And we had an automatic parachute resupply. Mike's touched on also our planning. Even though it was condensed, you had all these primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency decisions. All right, here's what we're going to try to do. If that doesn't work, here's plan B.
Yeah.
All right, if that doesn't work, what's C? And there's these decision points all through there, like what's your minimum force? A lot of times when they split us, it's because maybe they can't operationally fly 12 of us somewhere. In our case, we were limited by horses.
Yeah.
Initially,
And here's what's kind of unique too, because we were still back when you guys had gone in, and the word came down about horses, because we were in the middle of our planning and our the various drops along the route. And it's like, well, how much fucking horse feed does a horse eat? I don't know how much because remember, you guys are already in, and that was the experience. And so they thought, well, everybody's going to be on horses. So we had to plan these, resupply of food for horses. That was going to be one of our good gestures. Like, hey, we're here to help. We even brought food for your horses. And so I remember that was kind of like an afternoon drill of, I don't know how much a fucking horse eats a day.
Now, you get down there to where you go. Are there horses down there, Mike? Is that...
No, we didn't have horses. Luckily, we had vehicles. I mean, there was dudes crossing the desert and stuff on horses and mules and stuff. But no, we were lucky to have vehicles. I mean, they were able to be commandeered.
Oh, so he's living the life of luxury in vehicles while you're figuring out how much a horse eats.
The terrain is very different too, from north to south.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate to go back a number of times and have been able to fly over the battlefield on several occasions and fly over different parts. I've even flown where your battlefield was at and others on another chapter of my life when I was in Afghanistan, way too much. But crazy things like we need horse feed.
Yeah.
And so America, they buy grain and horse feed in Turkey and Uzbekistan and Germany and palletize it, and special operations C-130 crew flies it over and airdrops horse feed to keep that army going. We grew our force from 300 fighters on horseback and united 3 different ethnic tribes. By 10 days later, we had 3,000 fighters on horseback.
Wow.
And they were in different groups of 300 to 750 fighters. And we split our team, did pretty risky. We split down to 3-man cells. So we'd put 3 Americans with an Afghan commander. And he'd have between 300 to 750 fighters at our peak, and then we'd put them in different counties.
Yeah.
And one of my communications sergeant and I, Will or Vince, we'd ride back and forth with the resistance leadership, back and forth between these groups and orchestrate an uprising and call in close airstrikes and call in resupply drops, and that's really what Special Forces does, is a force multiplier, is to enable our partners to do it better on behalf of our goals and interests as well.
Quite the multiplication, right? You got a team of 12, and then you're able to go.
It was hard living. It was hard living.
Yeah, and we appreciate that down in the south too, because once you guys rolled in through Mazar Sharif, they all sort of collapsed back towards Kandahar, which was our neighborhood, and we didn't even have, we had about 30 guys that you'd see visually every day. And supposedly the rest are out there ready to come in whenever. And we did several lethal drops, but guns got handed out, and you never saw the guy again.
Oh, really? So,
but supposedly Karzai and some of the leadership, they were out forward and this and that. But
so is Karzai down around where you are? Is that where he's?
Yeah, we took him in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought Karzai in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the other main leaders that was identified at that time.
Yeah. So it looks different for you. They're not multiplying, at least where you can see them, Mike.
When we have lethal drops, and lethal drops is guns and ammunition and all that stuff. So you get big drops of that, hand that out, and it wasn't exactly like Robin Sage and Doctrine where you're getting names and fingerprints and paying them. It's like, here's a gun, and some Afghan says blah blah blah, and they take off, and they're part of platoon X somewhere that's got this region, and I don't know, they were there, but we didn't really see them. We weren't a big, massive, movement like they were. We were just kind of, there was guys in front of us, and we were kind of moving down, and then we got in this one big battle down there in Tarankout. Well, not Tarankout, but Tarankout was our first kind of battle, and once we secured that, we were moving south to Kandahar, and there was the last piece of kind of key terrain before you went into Kandahar, and there was a big, another big lethal drop just before that, but that was where one of our big battles was, and that's where we ultimately got blown up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I just wonder how much of that difference comes from you're working with tribal cultures, right? I mean, and especially up there.
But they were talking every day. I mean, Karzai was on the radio. We knew we were eating lunch in our little safe house in Tarankout when Mazar Sharif fell. And he's like, oh, Mazar Sharif fell. And it's very funny. And the CIA are talking, they got their own little network. But the teams weren't really talking because of the whole, isolation and, you're not supposed to. But everybody kind of knew what was going on through the message traffic.
The isolation, that's by design then, huh? That's
It is.
to
It's
give you the best
something from
opportunity.
World War II
Yeah.
with the Office of Strategic Services, where we would compartmentalize a team. So if you were killed, captured, or tortured, you couldn't compromise and give up.
Yeah.
I had no idea what Mike's team was doing or other teams were doing,
Okay.
and that they still have that implementation today. It's a lot tougher on with social media and on today's digital footprint. And,
Yeah.
we had to deal with media on the battlefield, but not initially. So our team inserted on night of October 19th, a little over a month after the 9/11 attacks, and the towers had collapsed, and that pile's still smoldering. Got in there, linked up with our CIA teammates and with our initial partners, and within 10 days had united these three rival factions and raised up a militia army of thousands.
Okay.
And we were 21 days on horseback to come out of the mountains and defeat the extremist army of the North. We had an incredible number of airstrikes from every manner of platform, aircraft carriers in the Indian Ocean, and Air Force fighters coming out of the Gulf Coast countries, and even B-52 bombers coming out of Diego Garcia. But an incredible amount of airstrikes at that phase of our mission to defeat that extremist army and capture thousands of these extremist fighters. But we liberated Mazar-e Sharif. There was two other Special Forces teams came in to help us with that.
Yeah.
But you're still talking about 40, 50 Americans total.
Yeah.
Was all that was on the ground in the North to make that impact happen. But then we were another 45 days of what we call the Mad Max phase, where we had ATVs and pickup trucks. And now I have armored tanks and towed artillery.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, especially when they're not pointed at you. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had several of those we'd go down and take pictures of after. And what's interesting, how was your weather up there? Because I know on a daily basis, I'd look up and I'd go, oh, blue skies, thank God we're going to live another day. Because that was the only way you're going to
Yeah.
Yeah.
stay around, as if you call an aircraft.
In the mountains, yeah, we got snowed on, rain, sleet. We had cloudy and overcast days, so you didn't always have aircraft overhead regardless of that. But I just remember it being freezing cold. A lot of times we lost 20 to 25 pounds of body weight.
Wow.
In the first month we were there. It tested you in every way, mentally, emotionally, physically, in that terrain. It seemed like everything was trying to kill you.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
there's been a lot written about our mission. I know there's been stuff written about Mike's mission as well. But my teammates and I finally told our own story in our book called Swords of Lightning that came out just about 2.5 years ago. And it blew up to a #1 new release on Amazon.
Oh, excellent.
But,
excellent.
Swords of Lightning.
Swords
That's
of
my
Lightning,
shameless plug right there.
Well, no,
There
that's
you go.
good.
But
That's good.
I know I've enjoyed reading the books and stuff, and just talking back to this compartmentalization. Even after you came back from these missions and you heard about what other teams did, there really wasn't a time that they brought us together to share those lessons. So literally it would be over a bar or at a buddy's house. And you'd go, wait a minute, you were on that team?
Oh, okay.
So you're hearing snippets of it really over a beer or something, And so when these books finally started to come out, I know they were widely read even within our own community.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting kind of point, too. It's when we were flying over, because we had come back to Fort Campbell, got restocked, and did some, additional training, and then headed back over to Uzbekistan. And that was the first time I read Bravo 20, which was the recount of the SAS in the first Gulf War and how they got, had to go into E&E and all that stuff. And so it is very good because I remember, all the teams have a different sort of specific missions, 2 missions, and your primary and infill capabilities and whatnot. But, I know there wasn't a lot of information from the first Gulf War, Desert Shield and Desert Storm. There was the team that was it 3rd Battalion or 1st Battalion or something that did a big recon, and they got kind of the same Bravo 20 scenario where they got compromised and all
by
that.
Children in a special reconnaissance site.
And we were an
Iraq,
SR team. One of my first teams was a special reconnaissance team, and it was like that was the only little AAR of like, here's what to do, here's what not to do. right? And so I think a lot of these books are going to be kind of
Is that
helpful.
is that
maybe
an
not.
oversight? Is that intentional? I mean,
It's part of the quiet professional, don't talk about
Yeah.
it kind of stuff. And I don't know.
best practices seem like I know the mission varies, train varies, but you would think at least having an overview of some of the best practices from some things would be beneficial. But I'm surprised. I guess I'm
Well,
surprised.
there are, but I mean, like the detailed
Yeah.
sort of minute by minute, what did you do in this situation? It wasn't really available.
Yeah.
What I loved was like meeting some of these veterans, even from way back from World War II, and our Vietnam veterans from Special Forces, and to actually sit and ask, like, what were you thinking? What was the thought process? Why did you do this? Why'd you go right instead of left?
Yeah.
Was what were those factors that made you do the things that you did and made you successful on the battlefield, and what were those techniques? So I know some of that carries over, but it's really more an oral history. It is, sadly.
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's what I know I've been asked, along with Mike and others, we've been asked to tell our story of, okay, yes, we're the quiet professionals, but that doesn't mean silent.
Yeah.
Because we need to pass on some of these lessons learned and share our stories, and not just our team, these other teams. I hope that sheds light. There are still incredible Special Forces teams and the missions they've done the last 24 years that have yet to be written about, that are just amazing stories.
And I think to the broader population, like to read your book and some of the other ones, we talk about the military-civilian divide. There are less people serving; they serve more times, and then especially when you look at your community, even less people, right? And so it creates the divide. They can't really understand. They can never understand it fully, but a more of an appreciation by picking up one of those books and understanding, well, here's what committing troops means. Here's what committing special forces to do something means, and you don't get that from kind of the more sensationalized. You got to read a book. You got to hear, people's thoughts and experiences in writing. So
it's a different way. I loved being in the special operations community. I was active duty infantry initially at the 101st Airborne, and had gone through Ranger School, et cetera, and then that initial training as a young officer. But then after only a year and a half there, I had incredible experiences at Fort Campbell, and even in the infantry and in the Rock Sons there. But then I got the opportunity to apply and go to the 3rd Ranger Battalion and work in special operations there and be a Ranger platoon leader. And that's, to me, like it's being a quarterback of a championship college football team.
Yeah.
You got young men that are physically fit, motivated. They're 18 to 22, 23 years old, and you're the quarterback of that. And they ask you to do some tough missions, seize an airfield, kill or capture enemies of our country, something like that. But you're bringing 30 to 40 of your closest heavily armed friends, and your job is to break things, and kill or capture to make that mission successful. In Special Forces, you can do that with 12 guys, but it's more cerebral of, well, what if I don't have to kill them? What if I can influence somebody else to do something? Or what if I just can convince them not to fight and to surrender and to come on side? So it's really a lot different, and you're also introduced in Special Forces. You get culture, language, and training. Every guy is assigned a particular second language. I can barely speak English. And then
But you're in a cave negotiating, national interests.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy.
You talk about unifying those 3 different groups, right? And to be able to take that, and I don't know if you know how long they had been, in opposing factions, but to be able to mend that into a force that was able to be directed and to overtake the forces that were in the north, that's not everything's a nail and I'm just a hammer.
Through them, General Dostum, he was able to get thousands of the Taliban to fight on our side. Now, and when I say that, what I'm talking about is you got to go a little bit deeper. There's Al Qaeda, that's the foreign fighters. They're mostly Arab, hardcore extremist fighters. They're highly trained, committed, will fight to the death. There was foreign Taliban or Pakistani Taliban. They speak a different language. They speak Dari, right? Predominantly. Well, then they're operating in the northern part of the country against these minority groups, and they speak totally different languages. So they were very oppressive and brutal on those minority groups. But then they would come into a village and say, "Your village, Trent," and they would threaten to kill your family unless you fought alongside them or supported them in some way or capacity. So now you're considered local Taliban because you are supporting them.
Yeah.
But we were able to drive a wedge between that to peel them back away.
Yeah.
And portray the foreign fighters, the foreign Taliban, as the foreign extremists that have hijacked your country.
Okay.
Americans are here as liberators
Yeah.
in small numbers.
It sounds like some great strategy and some stuff you.
Yeah, and it's like you can get an AK-47 or you can get a B-52. Which end do you think is going to win?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap up our first segment. If we've got time, I'd like to come back for a second one, or our last one here, just to talk about coming home and the mission that you've had after. And I know you've got a whiskey brand and a lot you've done, so we'll come back, chat about that, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
All right, thanks.